Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. I'm Stefania Forner. I'm one of the scientists on staff here at the Alzheimer Association. I'll be the moderator for this webinar today. Now we'll be talking about new Investigator Program Award, a partnership program between the Alzheimer Association and the National Alzheimer Coordinating Center, NACC. And we'll hear today from Dr. Heather Snyder, Senior Vice President of the Alzheimer Association Medical and Scientific Relations, and Dr. Sarah Biber, Executive Director at NACC, and also Dr. Susy Stark from the RAC Steering Committee. Before we start, some housekeeping rules. Please mute yourself. This is not set up as a webinar, but as a meeting. So if we don't want back noise, please mute yourself. Wait until the end of the session to ask questions. At that time, you may unmute to ask those questions or put it on the Q&A. So thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us today and learn about the program. So I'll pass it to you, Heather and Sarah. And let me share my screen.
Great. Thank you so much, Stefania. And thank you all so much for joining today. I think as Stefania mentioned, this is a partnership program, and we're really excited about the opportunity to share a little bit more with you about the program. I know some of you were with us in Boston just a few weeks ago, where we went through at a high level a little bit about the program. And today we'll dive a little bit deeper and have another opportunity for you to ask questions around your potential application, your particular scenario or situation. And so before we get into the outline of the webinar or any of that, I do want to just take a moment that this program, really, this is its second year in our offering, and we're really excited about the opportunity to partner with NACC and the Alzheimer's Association. And I think bringing the two groups together, we have a shared vision and mission in terms of supporting early career researchers and really supporting the infrastructure and the network that the ADRCs have across our country. And it's just been a delight to work with the team at NACC, and we're really excited about continuing this partnership this year and continuing to grow it as we refine the program. You'll see in the commentary, we've really worked to address some of the things that we know maybe caused a little bit of confusion or some more questions last year, and create resources for everybody. You'll hear a little bit about some of the results that we heard from applicants last year as well in terms of the design of the program and the setup of the REC. Here, next slide. So just a little bit in terms of what we're going to talk about today. You'll hear about the program overview and the framework of the program. So hopefully this addresses many of your questions. But if not, as Stefania mentioned, you can enter them in the Q&A or raise your hand at the end to ask those questions. And Dr. Biber is going to go through a lot of the ins and outs of the program and some of those specific questions. A really unique aspect of this program is our partnership with the REC, and we're so incredibly grateful to their steering committee in partnering with us on this program and bringing forward a mentorship program, and you'll hear a little bit about that from Sarah in a minute. And then we do want to make sure we have ample time for Q&A. So again, please raise your hands or put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A as you have them, and we'll get to them at the end. And so as we go through the program, I'm going to pass it to Sarah, who's going to talk through the ins and outs of the program.
Great. Hello, everyone. Great to be here with all of you. Thanks for joining us. And I'll echo what Heather just shared, which is that we are just absolutely thrilled to be partnering with the Alzheimer's Association on this grant program this year. And we're so thrilled that we're able, through that partnership, to be able to really provide additional awards to early career investigators across the ADRC program. So this is extremely exciting. We're going to continue to iterate on this as we go and have incredible partners to make that happen with. So a couple things here. So there are going to be 10 new investigator awards. Again, last year we actually did 13. We're targeting 10 this year. These are $135K direct cost awards, and they're open to early career investigators across the ADRC program that are affiliated with the ADRC. We'll talk a little bit more about what does affiliation mean. That's something we got a lot of questions about last year, and we're here to clarify anything that needs to be clarified today. And then we have a mentorship program, right? So you can choose to be matched with a mentor. We'll get into more of that later, who will provide guidance on preparation of your application. And then any area related to Alzheimer's disease and related dementia is eligible for this award. We welcome you to bring forth all of your different types of ideas in that very broad range of potential research topics. And our team is available if you would like to use NACC data. You're not required to use NACC data. It does not impact anything about your award, whether you use it or don't use it. But if you would like to use NACC data, our research team is available to help you leverage that for your project. Next slide, please. So let's talk about eligibility and affiliation criteria. So I'm going to get into the minutia here a bit, and then you guys are going to have a lot of time at the end of this webinar today to ask us questions. And we're going to really open up the floor to all kinds of questions. So what does it mean to be, how are you eligible for this award? So you need to be a new investigator, and you should have a pre-existing affiliation with that ADRC that was established before you applied for the award. So it should be established before, in this case, October of 2024. You will need to get a letter of support from your director. And there is a lot of leeway from ADRC to ADRC in terms of what affiliation means. So one of the key pieces there is that your ADRC needs to be able to distribute the subaward to you. So that is a key piece. But outside of that, affiliation is something that is really determined by the director of your center. You can be a postdoc, postdoctoral fellow, a resident, a junior faculty member. When we say junior faculty member, that means you should not have been promoted beyond assistant professor rank for MD or PhD. You have to be within 10 years of your terminal degree. We will consider we'll consider, exceptions for career disruptions, et cetera. But you may not have already received an R1 or a new investigator award previously. Next slide. And then the RFA, as you're going to see this on a lot of the slides, but if you want to go ahead and download the RFA and read along, you're welcome to as well. And that brings me to the most important part, the main thing you should take away. If you take away nothing else from today, please take away that it is incredibly important that you review the RFA and all of the details of the RFA. We have worked incredibly hard as a team to make sure that we have covered all of our bases through that RFA. If we've missed anything, we'll make sure to update that for next year, and you can bring that to our attention. But really, that's your go-to spot for understanding eligibility criteria. You can reach out to us if you have questions. So that's step number one, is really make sure you do a thorough read through of the RFA and reach out if you have any questions. The next thing you need to do to be eligible is to submit a letter of intent form. Now, this is not a huge lift. This can literally be done in about 15 minutes. Essentially, what you have to do is you have to log in. We're using Proposal Central again this year, which is the portal that Alzheimer's Association uses for all of their awards. You're going to create an account if you don't have one already. Through that letter of intent, you have the option to request a mentor. If you would like one, I highly recommend you take advantage of that opportunity. And you can provide a title and a very brief description of your proposal. And really what we're using that description for, we're not making any determinations about anything about the science at that point. We're really just looking to see, based on the area you're going to be developing your proposal around, who might be a mentor with the right kind of expertise to mentor you. What's the best match we can find of the available mentors. And you can also choose a few keywords to describe your proposal. The other thing we're using that letter of intent for is to determine your eligibility, right? So we want to be able to let you know, right, if for some reason, right, you've submit a letter of intent and you're not eligible because you don't meet any of the criteria I just shared on the previous slide, then this is our chance to catch that before you go through all of the difficult work of developing a full proposal. Next slide. So, I'm so thrilled that REC is going to be partnering with us again on this mentorship program last year, and that they jumped in to do that with us last year. It was fantastic. I wanted to share a few highlights from last year's program on the mentorship piece in particular. So we did have 77% of applicants requested mentors. They were all matched with mentors by NACC and REC. I will say that of the folks that were funded, the vast majority of them did have a mentor. 80.2% of mentees felt their mentor helped strengthen their proposal. And then 92.2% of applicants expressed confidence in applying the guidance that they had received from their mentor to future grant applications. So I really want to emphasize this piece for a minute, because this is absolutely critical. Because one of the things we were trying to accomplish last year by introducing this mentorship component to this program, it is a competitive program, right? And we want to ensure that everybody who applies get some concrete value out of it, right? They establish a mentoring relationship, they get feedback on a proposal. If you don't get funded this round, right, you can resubmit that using the feedback that you had. You can also carry that forward to additional grant applications that you might want to submit. So this is all about really trying to make sure we're providing value to all applicants as part of this process. And 95.4% of mentors express interest in continuing to mentor future award cycles. So we're very happy that that worked well for the mentors as well. And thank you if any of you are here and served as mentors last year and are planning to sign up this year. We appreciate it so much. And there will be a link shared in the chat shortly by my team that will connect you to where you can sign up to be a mentor. If Elise or Amy could add that into the chat, that would be fantastic. Okay, so a couple more things here. We've got more details to go through. This actually looks like a repeat slide, so I'm going to skip past that one. And let's jump into the specific aims. So much like a standard grant application, you will be developing specific aims. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with this process already, where you'll really make clear, what are you trying to accomplish here with this proposal, with this proposed research? You'll need to provide a rationale. You'll need to share what you think the expected outcomes are going to be, and you'll need to help the reviewers understand if you're successful, what is the impact of this research going to be on the field? It should be easy to read, clear, and attractive. I didn't add that in there. Yeah, make sure that these are, easy for the reviewer to understand. So the research plan that you'll be submitting is 6 pages in length, max. So you'll have to, organize your research strategy under the headings of significance, innovation, and approach. Once again, all of these details are found in the RFA, so you can, pore over all the details there. And once again, reach out to us if you have any questions. And all the reviews will be conducted by NACC's Scientific Research Review Committee and the Alzheimer's Association reviewers. And there is some overlap between those groups, not surprisingly. And so, we are, thrilled that we have these incredibly committed reviewers that are, making themselves available to help review all of your applications and provide really valuable feedback. You will be provided with that feedback as well. There is a letter of intent, which we already discussed. There's also the application and proposal, which we discussed, and I'll share a little bit about how that happens, how the reviewers are going to approach that. So the applications are assigned to and reviewed by a panel of experts, so with either expertise in biomedical or social behavioral psychosocial research based on the applicant's kind of research focus, and that all happens through Proposal Central. The Scientific Review Committee discusses and evaluates these proposals. We rank them in comparison to other proposals within the same research area. We have a very comprehensive set of criteria similar to what's used on NIH grants, and also outlined in the RFA in a lot of detail. And then here are some of the criteria, which I'll go through, the primary criteria I'll go through right now. They're all going to be evaluated based on the overall impact, their significance, the investigator. So how qualified is this team to perform the proposed research? How innovative is this research, or the methods that you're going to be using to do the research? The approach. So do you have a solid scientific strategy, methods, analysis approach? The adequacy of the research setting. So who is going to be supporting this research? Like, do you have the access to the machines that you need, right? Do you have access to, all of the key things that you need to be able to make this project successful? And then also budget and resources. So how, is the budget really suited to that project? Is going to enable you to complete that project effectively? Okay, so some really important dates here. Your letter of intent is due on November 8th. There are no exceptions to these deadlines. Literally none. So even if you're like on the fence, I highly recommend that you take that 15 minutes to submit a letter of intent, to keep that option open for yourself. All of the final applications will be submitted on January 16th, and we will be announcing the winners of the awardees at the May ADRC meeting in San Francisco. So I will stop there, and I'm going to pass off to my colleague, Dr. Susy Stark to share more about what we're planning for the mentorship program this year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I'll just take a few minutes. I see so we have some questions already rolling in. Super excited. So I'm Susy Stark from WashU. I represent the NACC steering committee. My colleagues, Dr. Rundick and Cavazos are here on the call as well. So we're eager to take your questions. Let's dive right in. So as Sarah mentioned, we are super excited that we are able to use this grant mechanism to begin to help you identify not just mentors within your own center, but across the ADRC network to help you excel in your science and certainly in preparing this application. So what we hope to do is match you based on the research experience that you have and that a potential mentor has. That mentor is going to be a seasoned reviewer and seasoned grant getter, and they're going to give you excellent feedback on your aims and your proposals. We have asked the mentors to commit to 2 sessions with you before the application deadline, but that does not mean that you have to only limit yourself to 2 sessions that you work with your mentor. Next slide, please. So we think that this has great benefit for you. These are some pretty amazing folks. They're such generous scientists and scholars that we have within the ADRC network, and you're going to get access to them. You're going to find that you get personalized support. You might have a lot of personalized support within your own center, but we love this because it kind of gets you a different perspective. I know when I write grants, the more perspectives I have that I can respond to those different perspectives, the better I do. So we're hoping that we can get you to branch out and reach out and learn a little bit more about how others perceive your work. This can be very flexible. So we want you to sign up. Even if you think you can't commit to several Zoom sessions, don't worry. You can do this synchronous or asynchronous. It can be virtual. Maybe you'll be fortunate enough to be down the street or at a meeting with someone, and you can even do these in person. We hope this is a relationship that you can develop and have long-term. It may or may not be, or it may be a connection that you make through this mentor that you have. But either way, I think every mentee and mentor that I've spoken with has found this to be a really, really cool opportunity to get to know someone else. We think this gives you stronger proposals. Sarah gave you that data. 77% of the folks that were funded signed up and checked yes on the mentor box. So we hope that having these external expert opinions are really helpful for you. Next slide, please. So this is super easy. All you have to do is click that box that says, yes, I would like to request a mentor. And then all the rest of the work to get that done comes to us at the REC Steering Committee and at NACC. We will make sure that you have a mentor that is matched to you and that you'll have that mentor in time to work with them for those at least 2 times before you are required to submit. There's a QR code if you want to zoom in there. Let's see if I have any other slides left. Yes, the expectations, 2 meetings, and you have between November 22nd and January 15th. Realize this is over the holiday season. It might be a little challenging. So I encourage you to make connections with that mentor as soon as you can and kind of get those Zoom meetings or those agreements for exchanging documents on the books for both of you to make sure that you're both accountable to that. The other expectations that we have for you, we're going to do kind of a mid-program survey check-in just to see how things are going. We want to know what we can do better if we need to help you at all. December through January, you can expect to see that. We're going to have a end of program survey and then a follow-up survey in 1 year to see if the program actually helped you submit another grant or be successful with this grant. Next slide. So Sarah already mentioned some key dates, but you do not, please don't forget that November 8th drop dead deadline for the LOI. You should know that mentors and mentees will be matched and meeting to review those aims. Applications are due January 16th. And then January 17th to February, we'll have that survey and then the 6-month survey. Again, no exceptions on the LOI. No exceptions on the LOI. Please get that in. So I think that's going to end it for me. I think we can open up the floor, right, for some questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah, Heather, and Susan. That was great. So we do have already lots of questions coming in. I'll start with some that are common, probably questions. One is, I'm in the middle of an Alzheimer Association grant application. Am I allowed to apply to an Alzheimer Association and also this program?
Yeah, so at this point in time, the association has not put a limit or a restriction on whether you can hold both a grant from this program as well as from our other programs, such as our Alzheimer's Association research grants, research fellowships, or clinical science fellowships. I will tell you that I can't guarantee that will always be the case, as we are always evaluating that and looking at what makes the most sense across all of our programs, particularly as the competitiveness of each of our programs increases. But for this cycle, you are able to have both.
Thank you. We have another question related to other NIH awards. So would this award conflict with current fellowships such as T32 or others?
So I think the question, Sarah, is like, is this distributed more like a grant? So yes, this is a grant in terms of that. Now, there are some instances where you may need a certain % effort. And sometimes there are some questions from your grant office. If that is a situation that you're in, I would encourage you to have that conversation with your grant office now and make sure that they don't have any concerns about you applying for this or potentially meeting the requirements of this grant based on your current funding or whatever else you might have. But we are aware of some people that, either have a lot of grants that cover most of their time and effort. And so then it becomes somewhat of a challenge. So I would just encourage you to have that discussion. But from our side, and Sarah can confirm, we have no restriction on whether you can have a K or a T32 training or anything else. Sarah?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's aligned with where we are too.
So from the program director side, I would also encourage you not only don't stop at the grants office, make sure you talk to your program director if you have a T32 or another training program, because those are all specific requirements and you want to make sure you're fully in compliance. I'm guessing they're going to say 2 thumbs up, but make sure.
Great, thank you. We have another.
Just one thing I want to add. We do have a requirement that you have at least 10 to 20% of your effort, though, committed to the new Investigator Award Program. So that is important. So you shouldn't be spread so thin, right, that you wouldn't be able to commit that level of effort.
And that is actually a question on your letter of intent that you need to confirm you are able to have that percentage. Is there a limit of number of applications from one given ADRC?
So we've talked about this. This is one of these things that's at the discretion of the ADRC director, right? Because you do need to get that letter from her or him. And, there are, it's really at their discretion. Some ADRCs, have submitted 12 applications we saw last year, some limit it to what they thought were the top 2 applications. It's really an ADRC to ADRC level decision. Yeah.
Thank you. We do have a question related to resubmission. So if someone submitted last year on the program, didn't get through, but got competitive scores, can they come back and put it as a resubmission? Can they mention?
Yeah, so we had a lot of discussion about this because that is actually not something that traditionally NACC has done, but it is something that the Alzheimer's Association does with our programs, particularly because we also see the mentorship and the review process is something that's really part of that evolution. And so we did agree that you are able to submit it as a resubmission, but you're never required to, at least not from the Alzheimer's Association's perspective or in any of our programs. And that's the case here as well. So it's really completely up to you as the applicant. We do not guarantee that you'll get the same reviewers for a number of reasons. They may not be available. They may not be in conflict. They may not be reviewing. There's a whole lot of reasons that they may not be available. So we don't guarantee the reviewers. So it's really, if you do note it's a resubmission and you do include that and you refer to it and you refer to things that the reviewers noted, just make sure that that's very clear in how you're doing it so that if somebody new is picking it up, it's very clear to them that you've addressed the comment or whatever the comment may have been as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
So can I add one thing to that for the mentoring program? We also can't guarantee that you'd have the same mentor, but if you are, when you do your letter of intent and tell us the area of focus that you're interested in getting help in, if you had a mentor that you really connected with and you feel like you want that mentor again, we'll do our best to match you. No guarantees, but please let us know if there's someone like that you want to connect with.
Thank you. Is there a requirement for citizenship of the United States or permanent residency, or international scholars can apply?
As the requirement is really the affiliation to the ADRC. So there is no requirement for citizenship or permanent residency within this program.
Thank you. Are co-PIs allowed? Can it be a multi-PI award?
Yeah, so we do allow that you can note that there's collaborators on your application and other key personnel with your application, and you're allowed to include that in your application. I think there is a, there's always a balance, and maybe I'll ask Susy to talk a little bit about this in terms of these are really grants to support the new investigator and to support your kind of advancement and development. So how you balance that with who you might also bring in, I can tell you that, and I think this came up at the ADRC meeting at the breakfast, if it's not quite clear that this is really setting you up, then that creates some questions with the within the review as well. And so I don't know, Susy, if you can talk a little bit about that balance for the applicants on bringing others on board to their team and what that looks like versus how to best balance that in their applications.
Right. So you should look like you have the exact skill set and that you have the support to achieve the aims of the application. So you should talk to your mentors at your own institutions. And in some cases, you'll have mentors that will support time with no effort to help you be successful in these types of applications. So you need to make sure that it's a lot of money, but it's not unlimited funding. So make sure that you're using the effort in the way that you need to get the aims accomplished. And then make it clear that you have the resources within the institution that you're in to achieve the aims as well. But I don't think these kinds of awards are looking for a big name MPI to be next to you to be successful at the end of the award. That is not the intent of this. We want you to be highlighted and spotlighted, and we want you to be successful. So I think that's what you need to focus on.
Thank you. We do have a question related competition rate on the previous cycle. Maybe Payline, Heather, if you want to address that.
Yeah, I think we've been as transparent as we hopefully can, and hopefully this helps everyone in thinking about this, is we did receive about 153 or over 150 letters of intent and subsequent applications last cycle. And we funded 13. So for those that submitted applications, I think it was 153 applications, we funded 13. We are committed to funding 10 this year. Last year, we were able to fund the additional 3. I don't know that we'll be able to do that this year. So the commitment is 10. If we get 150 and we fund 10, you can do the math of what that is in terms of Payline.
Thank you. We do have a question regarding the percentage, the 10-20% time commitment. If someone has a 9-month appointment, can the budget for summer salary time be on the project? I think those are specific cases.
Sarah, do you want to take that one? Or do you want me to?
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's 10 to 20%. It's 10 to 20% FTE. So however that works for you, we're willing to work with you. I think you just need to make sure, and maybe I'll ask Susy to comment on this as well from the mentorship side. You just need to make sure that you are positioning yourself, and as you talk about your budget justification, your FTE time and all of that, that you have set it up in such a way that it is clear you have the time to do the work and that you have the resources to do the work that you're committing to in whatever time that looks like. So we're relatively flexible for how that might look, but and Susy, you can maybe comment from a reviewer side as well. If you're only thinking of doing it in the 3-month increment and not during the other 9 months, how that may come across to the reviewers, that's always a question that we see, at least in our other program. Susy?
Yep, I think, and this is another time, if you're on a 9-month contract, go talk to your mentor to figure out how to present that information clearly to your study section that shows that you are going to be able to achieve the aims in the lovely timeline that you're going to lay out. That's going to show how you're going to get this work done. So if you don't have resources at your institution, this is a great question to ask the mentor that you're matched with at when we match you up in preparation for your application. So good questions. Keep them coming.
Thank you. If you are a faculty, but you are affiliated at the ADRC, but your paid appointment it's a different institution, are you eligible?
Yes, if you are considered an affiliated faculty, and we're aware of several different examples of where the ADRC, the primary ADRC may then have subcontracts with the affiliated institutions or with the other institution where you may have your appointment. So as long as you are considered an affiliated faculty member, as outlined and as described, then that is eligible. I think this gets to one of the other questions that was there about making sure the ADRC is able to distribute the subaward. And so in that instance, if the funding is flowing to the ADRC, there needs to be an award in place regarding their ability to then get that funding to you directly. And so that's a bit about that timeline in terms of the ADRC contract. But if you are already an affiliated, your institution and the ADRC are connected, that should exist. And most of the ADRC directors have that, have a very clear understanding of how to do that. But coming back to something Susy keeps saying, this is a great question to talk about with your mentor and a great thing to figure out with your mentor into how that should work, the kinds of questions you should ask, what you need to make sure is in place in doing that. So I don't know, Susy or Sarah, if you'd add anything.
We just went through this yesterday at WashU, so I think so just getting the ADRC directors and the administrators on board and ready and knowing that it's coming, I think is a really important step. So I'm going to give a shout out to one of my former RAC scholars who got the ball rolling yesterday. Thanks, Abdullah. So now our ADRC directors know it's coming, they're prepared, and they are ready to write letters and get them in on time for you. So I think I saw another question is, what's the timeline for this? It's the same timeline you have. If they're late, you're late. So we have to make sure that these things get in on time.
Yeah, and I'll just add again that these sorts of things are up to the discretion of the director at your specific ADRC. So someone may decide, right, that they're not okay with that. From our end, it's eligible, but it is at the discretion of the ADRC director to determine what affiliation means to them and to their center.
Thank you. We do have a question regarding, do you need pilot data? Is it mandatory to have pilot data? Does it make more competitive if you present that data? So
you're not required to have pilot data. There's no requirement for that, as you'll see when you go through the RFA. As we discussed at lunch we did at the ADRC meeting last week, right? It is going to make your application more competitive if you do have that pilot data. That said, right, it may be worth doing it anyway, even if you don't have pilot data, just to have the experience of getting the mentorship, of getting feedback on your proposal, right? It may help. There may be value and enough value in that for you that it's worth submitting the application anyway. But I'll let others comment on that.
So I'm going to harken back to what Corey said at lunch, and that was you're gonna give a strong scientific justification and demonstrate rigor by giving either a strong basis in the literature or your own preliminary data. So something is necessary to establish that this is the right question at the right time, but it does not have to be your own pilot data or preliminary data. And you can look among your colleagues too. There might be folks that are your co-Is that have preliminary data that will help justify what you're proposing as well. So that's a good mentoring opportunity to figure out how to present your question as the next logical step in this line of research. So reach out to those folks to get some advice about that.
Thank you. We do have a question that maybe it's unclear, but if you are a postdoc and you want to apply, do you need to use the RAC mentor, or can you just have your postdoc mentor?
You can definitely just have your mentor. There's no requirement to have a REC mentor, one of our mentors through this program. It is not going to be a mark against you for your application or anything like that if you don't take advantage of that opportunity. It's there for those that would like to take advantage of it.
Can I maybe just ask it a slightly different way and ask the question to you, Susy, is, as you think about your career and how you got to where you are, can you talk a little bit about maybe the pros and cons or of having multiple people that are part of your network?
Yep, I think so. You have to, you will run across so many mentoring opportunities in your lifetime, and that is such a gift. I hope you have I hope you are over-mentored, but over-mentoring comes with a challenge, which is figuring out whose advice to take, because when you put 25 mentors in a room, it's like putting 25 cooks in a kitchen. Everybody has the best idea about what the perfect ragu has to include. So you, as the PI, get to sort through all the recipes and all the ideas and decide what's going to be what you present. So it never hurts to have other opinions. And our mentoring program can be just another set of eyes and another perspective that's helpful. It doesn't have to be what drives your research. Certainly your home mentor should be the one that's helping you prepare your application. So you can use it however you want. And I've found over my lifetime, the more people that I can make my story clear to, the better I fare, whether it's a manuscript or a study section. The more clear I am with the different members of my team, the better my science will be. So this is just an opportunity to get another perspective to make sure your story is super clear and that you've thought about all these other things that you might not have thought about that might impact your outcome. So mentoring is fun. We are so committed to it, and we are happy to have opinions, but you get to decide what opinion you're going to take home.
Thank you. So we do have a question about multi-institutional ADRCs, if there's consideration in funding giving to applications from non-prime site, which will be required to have a sub-award and a sub-award indirect costs.
Yeah, so maybe I can start with that. I think that gets to the question we were just talking about, that it is perfectly okay for the funding from one of the non-prime sites to receive that subcontract, assuming that the relationship is in place between the institutions, between the ADRC that has the prime contract with your institution, and that you are considered an affiliated faculty or an affiliated faculty of that ADRC. The indirects is interesting. So we actually, this is restricted. The indirects, it's if the 9 of the 10 awards have the Alzheimer's Association indirect rate, which is published at 10%. The top ranked will be funded directly by NACC, and that is then the relationship that is with the ADRC. And so that is a little bit of a unique program with this. The subcontract must accept that indirect rate. There is absolutely no exception. The Alzheimer's Association does not allow any more than a total cap of 10%, regardless of what that relationship is between the institutions. That is an Alzheimer's Association requirement, and that is a non-negotiable aspect of that program, of anything that's funded by us.
We are having many questions related to the title. So if you have, you are not necessarily a postdoc, but you are maybe a project scientist, senior scientists, if they are still eligible to apply to this program, if they meet all of their eligibility criteria.
Yeah, so I think it depends on your institution. So if you're, I'm not quite sure I completely understand the way the questions are written. If you're a senior scientist, so you're an established investigator, that is not what this program is for. But depending on your institution, there are sometimes roles that are senior scientists that are what might be the equivalent of an instructor at another institution. So it's very dependent on your institution. And so just to kind of clarify that this is really for the early career researchers, and there is that time commitment from the time of degree or residency. In terms of the other titles and what it is, I think it is spelled out in the eligibility that it does not need to be a postdoc. It's that range of titles, because again, every institution has a whole variety of things that they include in their titles between graduate student and assistant professor. So we recognize that.
Thank you. We do have a question focused more on the project. If they submit a project to learn a new technique, or more like a training grant, or does it have to be necessary skills? If they can submit something that's for learning new techniques, such as a training grant, if that's allowable for this mechanism.
Yeah, so I can weigh in on that too. I mean, I think it depends on, if you're using the grant to just learn the mechanism, that's probably not a fit for the way that the RFA is written in its own. But if you're using the grant to learn the mechanism and apply it to a scientific question, that would potentially fit, again, very much depending on how you write it. So I think I might defer to Susy to say this is a great thing to discuss with your mentor, right?
Right. I would not, I'm going to say this is not a career development award. So do not submit your career development plan and say you're going to take a course. I don't think that, but I think we all know that part of your career development plan, if you're working on your K, is to have a really strong research project and you learn from that strong research project. So I think that's what Heather's referring to, but it has to be a research project with a hypothesis-driven kind of approach to what you're doing. So you might need to learn, I probably would not highlight that you need to learn a bunch of stuff in order to achieve the aims of the study, but that you have the resources and support in order to achieve the aims of the study. And of course, you're going to learn along the way. But I wouldn't go in and say, I have no idea how to do this, but I think you should fund me to do it. But that's a really good conversation that you should have with your mentor to figure out how to present that and also learn along the way, which we want you to do. So that's a little bit grant finessing stuff that you're going to work on with your mentor at home and the mentors that we hopefully will connect you with.
Just maybe to add on that. So the association does offer something called the Alzheimer's Association Research Fellowships, or the AARFs, as well as the Alzheimer's Association Clinical Science Fellowships. And both of those do have the opportunity to include your training grant or your training plan and the things you want to do. So that's things like courses and some of that other development. So, you know, if that's really where you are in your career, I would really encourage you to check out that website, alz.org grants. You can email the email that you saw on your screen, and I think Stefania is getting ready to put it in the chat right now. And so, you know, encourage you to check that out and take a look at those opportunities as if that's where you are in your career.
And I'll just say you can apply to be a rec scholar too at the same time.
There you go.
We will give you all of those resources.
We do have one question in the chat related to the mentor. If they have a mentor, they want to be matched. Is that possible? How that works?
I would love that we could personalize and handpick everybody's mentor, but we're not going to have the time. If you have a really targeted specific area, put that in your letter of intent. We will do our very best, but we are not going to be able to say, I'm going to find, you know, I'm going to guarantee that John Morris is going to be your mentor. That's probably not going to be something we can guarantee. It's going to be dependent upon who agrees to be a mentor, to take that time to meet with you, and then the span and the experience of the mentees that we have to make sure that we get people matched to their best individual.
We just got one question here. I'm from a different field and hope to start on this area of I don't have publications. Is prior experience being evaluated to the project as a reviewer?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. So I think that gets a little bit into the scientific question and making sure that you have the expertise and the team in place to support you. Either you have the knowledge to do the grant as it's described, and or you have a team in place that will help you with that. You know, the biosketch is part of the application, and so it is possible that could come up in the review in terms of a discussion about whether the feasibility and the ability to move something forward, and Susy can maybe address that as well.
Yep, I think that it just needs to be clear that the aims can be achieved. So you're probably putting together a team to help you, and maybe you're embedded within a system that's going to make you successful. That's another grantsmanship issue, right? You're going to show that here's your question, you have all this experience in X, and it's going to help Y. Y just happens to be living in the Alzheimer's world. We love at the rec that we are looking for folks that are going to, you know, bring their expertise from other areas into AD, because AD questions are really big, and we're going to need a big team at the table to solve these big problems. No more low-hanging fruit for us. So if you come with a special skill set and you align yourself within an ADRC and you have the support to get the aims done, as a reviewer personally, I would think that was a pretty cool thing. But you're going to have to make that really clear to your reviewers as they hear you. And that takes a lot of, again, I'm going to say that word, mentoring, to get you that super crispy, clear story that convinces everybody that you can do what you say.
And then I do just want to mention that the Alzheimer's Association has a program called New to the Field. I don't know the exact timing of when the next cycle will open, but this is for individuals that are from a different field and are bringing that expertise into this space. So it's a great opportunity to kind of highlight that you're building that team and doing that. And I think we anticipated it'll open in early 2025, but we don't know the exact dates of that. So would encourage you to check that website out. That's right above your comment. For more information about that program is another funding opportunity for somebody that strikes me as just where you are in your career and in your development.
We did receive many questions that I am actually going to be the one answering this regarding when do you need the letter of the ADRC director? It is on the application phase. So as Sarah stated right in the beginning, make sure to read that RFA. Make sure to read all the rules. If you got an R1, you're not eligible. We had some questions on that. So make sure to read carefully. And if you do have any questions after this webinar, after you go through the RFA, please send us an email that it's on the chat. And also this is being recorded, so this is also going to be shared. And in the upcoming days, most likely there will be a frequently asked question on the website of NACC. So please take a look at that as well. It seems like we don't have any other questions, so we are ahead of time. But we do appreciate all of you for joining. Thank you, Sarah, Susy, and Heather for taking the time, and everyone for joining us today. Make sure to read that RFA and ask us any questions if you have.
Well, and maybe just one last thing to say that there's an incredible team that answers all of those emails. Stefania is one of them, but there are others at the NACC, and just a huge thank you to them, because this program would not happen with just the complexities and the intricacies without them. So huge thank you to all of you for the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you to Amy Young and to Lise Gruber on my team, who will be fielding many of those questions as well. And I did want to mention that if you missed the luncheon at the ADRC meeting, where some folks had a chance to hear from some of our awardees from previous years, I highly recommend you listen to the recording. We will be making that available on our website, and we'll send out a notice once that is available there. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to the REC. Thank you to the Alzheimer's Association for being such incredible partners on this program. And we are so excited for next steps and to review your applications. Thanks, everyone.
We'll be
Have a great
in
day,
touch
everyone.
soon. Thank you.
Bye.